Hi, everyone. So let me introduce Neil Gaur to all of you, and we'll get into a conversation. And I think you all are going to find this fulfilling, fascinating. Neil Gaur is the founder of the Portal to Ascension, a conscious event production company created in 2008 that hosts a wide range of presenters on a variety of topics, such as the origins of humanity, the existence of extraterrestrial life, exposing hidden truths, and exploring the nature of reality. He travels the world facilitating gatherings and filming documentaries that are intended to empower the individual to reclaim their sovereignty and awaken to their full potential. Neil also operates an online platform that creates and facilitates about 110 conferences and workshops a year. At this point, Portal to Ascension has worked with over 3,000 presenters, researchers, spiritualists, scientists, conscious explorers, light workers, and more. Neil is a philosopher, historian, researcher, and spoken word artist. He presents his research on the ancient wisdom and future science of sound, vibration, and frequency, as well as in-depth explorations into ancient civilizations, archaeological discoveries, space anomalies, shedding light on hidden esoteric wisdom, and exploring ways in which we can create unity and peace on Earth. Welcome, Neil. Thank you for being with us. And I know for you, it's early in the morning.
Yeah. Hey, Linda. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you all.
So I want to just kind of dive in with you. Let's start from square one, Neil. It's the way people always ask me, talk to us about, I read some things on your website. Neil and I know each other a bit. I've been in a program with Neil. Talk to us about that initial event or opening or spark that Neil led you to ultimately the work that you do today.
Sure. Okay. So the reason why I really got into this work was I wouldn't say Hinduism per se brought me to this, but Hinduism definitely did one thing, which is I was blessed to be raised in a religion where I wasn't told it was the only way to God. I wasn't like many other religions, this is the only way. So because of that, I was open to many different things. I was born and raised where I'm at right now. It's 12:15 in the morning in the UK. I'm over here right now. And I was born and raised in Hounslow in London, and pretty much did all the rites and rituals, all the Hindu things that I was told. But I was raised celebrating Christmas. I was raised, having huge Christmas parties, watching the King of Kings every Christmas. I was into Moses and all that stuff. So that was foundational information. So at an early age, I actually knew that within the Hindu text, it actually says that there are many messiahs that would have come down to earth for specific people based on the culture and the needs of those people during specific timelines. And due to this, I just had an open awareness to the fact that all the religions on the earth, a lot of them have been manipulated and distorted through man-made influence, but a lot of them have truths, and there is probably some original source to it. So when I graduated high school in 2000 and I was 18 years old, the first question, so if there's an original question, the question was, what is the root of all religion? Okay. And the reason why I wanted to know that was because I was seeing immediately 2000, 2001, that there were all these connections and similarities within religions, right? And I'll just throw one out there, which is like the connection between Krishna and Christ, Yeshua, and all the similarities they have, and then also Christos from ancient Greece. So little things like this were coming up where I was seeing that many other cultures were having the same story and even the same messiahs with similar, backstories. And why is that? So I asked myself, is there a root to all this? Is there original source code that we can go back into and try to find out where we all came from? And that started my journey really down this rabbit hole. And I'll just add one other thing. I started writing poetry at age 16. So when I was 18 years old, I was writing hip hop raps, right? And my rap was all about extraterrestrials, UFOs, black holes, quantum physics, just because I was like a linear minded Indian kid that was into maths, I just started really getting into all that. So all of a sudden I was finding all this ancient history about the root of all religion, but I was also discovering that a lot of these ancient texts were talking about some advanced quantum physics, which was what I was rapping about. So those two things combined together led me down a rabbit hole where I just started doing a lot of research online, and I started coming across a bunch of different, information and speakers at that point, and just continued consuming the information. That was 2001.
So obviously, Neil, that was 21 years ago.
Yep.
And as you know, as I know, it's like we find this opening, or I might say, Neil, from my vantage point as a regression therapist, our guides drop this experience into our life, and then we as a human use our free will to figure out what to do with that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, okay. So Neil, you started researching all kinds of things. I know you said this happened, I think, in your second year of college.
Yep.
Did you stay with the university, or was it like, no, this is too left-brained per se, and you left the
Yeah, yeah.
university? What happened at that point?
Well, honestly, I was like in high school, I was never really like paying attention to anything. I kind of just made it by. I was getting C's all the time. And then when I got to Cal State Fullerton, because my SAT score was high. So even though I'd had a whatever GPA, I still got in. And then when I was in college, I pretty much I ditched all of my classes. I didn't attend too much. I wasn't present with everything. I ended up finishing my degree and going back to school and being a little more serious about it. And so in my second year of college, I actually got academically disqualified because I just wasn't attending my classes. And it wasn't, I was into all this stuff, but I was also into having a lot of fun, So I was rather hanging out with my friends and going to different events and parties and stuff rather than going to school. So like after my second year, I think middle of my third year, I got academically disqualified, but then I started going to the community college to make up the classes, which was just down the street in Fullerton for a while. So it took me like 6 years to get my bachelor's degree, and I took a year off in between. But as that was happening, I was just continuing to get more and more into this information and started attending conferences, meeting the speakers, and this truly became my real passion. And then also poetry, and then I started performing at open mics, spoken word, and that really is where my energy took me.
I think it's always fascinating, Neil, for those of us that end up in we might just say the world of spirituality, of what are the openings, what took us there, how brave or not brave were we to make changes, and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Okay, so Neil, what led you into the world of understanding extraterrestrials?
Yes.
I use the term, as you know, interplanetary means the same thing.
Yeah,
ETs,
yeah.
star seeds. What led you to the understanding of that there's intelligent life elsewhere, and perhaps these souls, based on
Mm.
my work, these souls come into body on Earth because we need their wisdom. How did that come about?
Yeah. So that picks up in the story of when I started looking for the root of all religion. So when I was looking for this text, one of the first few texts that I found were the Sumerian tablets of creation, right? And in the Sumerian tablets, the 7 tablets of creation, the first thing I found out was like the 7 days of the week was directly connected to the fact that there were 7 tablets. But on one of these tablets, there was actually a 2 scale map of our solar system with all the planets in the right places that we now know they are at. So it was like a scaled down a version of the solar system with all the planets exactly where we know that they are in location to each other. But on this map, there was actually another planet, right? And this planet had an elliptical orbit. So here's our solar system, right? And then there was another planet that had an elliptical orbit, which was they called the 10th planet, that was actually going past Pluto and then coming in between Mars and Earth every 3,600 years, right? Many of you probably heard about this. It's called Nibiru, when people call it Planet X. So because there's so much controversy now about like the Sumerian scriptures and the legitimacy of the translations and all that, which is a whole other story. And that is actually based on the fact if we were slaves to these beings or not. That's the real controversy. So in this tablet, not only did it have that, but it talked about beings from the stars, and that these beings came down to Earth and they did a bunch of things on this planet. And there were 2 sects of beings. There were 2 sects of gods, the Anunnaki and the Igigi, that both came down. One had more advanced powers than the other ones. One was basically the ones that were doing all the experiments on Earth, and the other one stayed in space. So this is cool. This is an interesting story. It could just be some ancient mythological story about some star beings. But then when I started realizing that Genesis 1:1 almost pulled everything from these texts, and the Elohim were actually the whole story of we were created in their image, and the Elohim actually came from this text, I had to start thinking that, well, either the three main religions that really have swept the planet, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, based on this book where they're talking about the Elohim, are completely false, or maybe there is some sort of extraterrestrial connection to this story. So
Mhm.
I guess the public can figure out which way I went, right? So I started exploring the extraterrestrial question. But one of the things that's really stood out to me was the fact that in Genesis, it says God created us in his image and his likeness. But the original text was a plural. The gods created us in their image and in their likeness. And the word Elohim, there's been so many there's so many different people that have said that that's actually a masculine, that's actually a feminine. But I've actually done some research on it over the last year, and I've been trying to go deep into it. And the word Elohim is actually androgynous. It actually represents masculine and feminine energy. So first of all, it's multiple beings. And then secondly, it's not even a man, it's an androgynous being that combines both the masculine and feminine and is talking about these beings. So that really changes the whole concept of monotheism and these religions, not even coming from a monotheistic background. And a little side note here, because I want to add this in there. And a great example of this is Israel, right? Israel, when the Jews had left Egypt, right, with Moses, first of all, there's evidence to suggest that they weren't slaves, that they were actually indentured servants. And indentured servants because the Egyptians had actually fought a war for them, and they were indebted to actually work off the time, the war that they had fought for them. So they were living with the Egyptians. And then when Moses left Egypt, he didn't actually take them away from Egypt. He actually was allowed to leave with them, and then they left Egypt. But at that point, they didn't actually have a god. They were worshiping Isis, because Isis was the god that was benefactor to all the slaves. Then they went through the desert and they started worshiping Ra-Amen, because Ra-Amen was the Egyptian god that was the sun god, and people were dying from heat exhaustion and all types of things in the desert. Then they got to the promised land where the Phoenician Canaanites were living, and they started worshiping the god of the Phoenician Canaanites called Elohim. So Isis, Ra-Amen, Elohim, Israel. Isis, Ra-Amen, Elohim, Israel. So even the whole construct of the first monotheistic religion was actually a combination of three deities put in one. So these are the things that started coming together that really just made me realize that there were actually multiple beings, and the scripture actually says that one God was chosen out of the many. So that's kind of was my introduction to the whole, are these beings extraterrestrial, celestial beings, what's going on here? Then I just started consuming all the information I could from Brings of the Dawn, Prism of Lyra, exploring our galactic origins, and just piecing together the pieces. So now I've been, in this for 20 years now, and just have heard quite a lot of various information and realized that the rabbit hole goes really, really deep.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you in an email, Neil, in one of my areas of focus that you may know is helping people understand why they're in body, what their purpose is, and assisting them to know what explains their unique qualities. And so some people know they are souls that don't typically come to Earth, that they've come to Earth with purpose, of course, but they are what I call interplanetary souls, and that helps explain health issues, knowledge, perspective, behaviors, and that sort of thing. So that what you're talking about, I think, has been a search for many of us of understanding who are we, why are we, what's our uniqueness about, and clearly, as you just explained, humans have tried to control the vantage point and the understanding of where do we come from, who are the divinities, and there's all this overlap. If you go up, you might say high enough, then you start finding the overlap of the understanding of conceptual framework. When you're talking about the Hebrews coming into what they call the land of milk and honey, as I've worked on that and come to understand that the as the Hebrews came into what we then called Canaan, they began to harm the Canaanites,
Mhm.
and they were rather brutal to the people living there because they believed it was their land. And
Yeah,
so, there we bring forward some of the traumas of humans and that sort of thing. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So Neil, what led you into the work of sound and vibration and that
Mhm.
as a healing tool? How did that come to be?
Well, when I started doing so picking up that story really like so for from 2001 to 2006, I went hardcore into the ET stuff. But when I got into it, I quickly went into bloodline tracking and the fallen angels, right? The fallen angels coming down to Earth, these being these star beings, and then basically the Nephilim coming from that, and this whole elitist agenda that was based on beings that believed that they were connected to some sort of off-world ETs, and they had this control over humanity. So this took me down like secret societies and a lot of conspiracies. So even though I started with ETs and consciousness, and I really, when I started getting to ET stuff, I started looking at Hinduism from a whole new perspective. I realized that yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, that's all vibration and frequency. It's an organic version of quantum physics, like we're eating well in order to shift our frequency and all these things. So quantum physics and frequency, which is basically sound, was tied into all these scriptures. In the Sumerian tablets, there were images of snakes and serpents with humans coming out of it, and people were speculating that these were actually wormholes and quantum frequencies that we were using vibration in order to come from one reality to another. So science and history really was going hand in hand. But I went down the conspiracy route. So by 2006, I was like hardcore. Like even though I was like still like a fairly young man having a good time in life, hanging out with my friends, I was still a hardcore like conspiracy factualist, I'll say. And I was at the point where I was like, they're after like they're trying to control us. There is no hope in the world. That was where I was at. So in 2006, I created an online group called 2012 Consciousness, Mind, Evolution, and Presence. Right? There was a Facebook group, and the group was designed just for people who are into these topics to start joining, and just sharing information. From 2006 2008, tens of thousands of people joined. I created a California chapter, a New York chapter, a Seattle chapter, a UK chapter, and more, right? But then in 2008, to get to your question, in 2008, I was at an open mic. It was my first open mic I ever performed at. It was doing spoken word. And then I was having this moment where I was kind of down and depressed, and I was thinking like, everything that I'm into is very spiritually based and orientated, like when it comes to consciousness and frequency and all that. But why am I still down? Why do I feel like so heavy about it all? And I had this realization that the missing link in everything that I was doing was the bigger picture of the fact that we all came here for a reason, and all of this is basically the experience that we signed up for. And when I had that realization, I stopped thinking about things happening to me, but me being a creator of my own reality, and the darkness giving us an opportunity to experience the light. Because I firmly believe that we're on this planet with amnesia. We don't have remembrance of our past or simultaneous lives. We don't have full remembrance of our extraterrestrial lives. And what occurs in this situation is that the best way to know what we want when we have amnesia, if we didn't have amnesia, we'd know everything. But the best way to know what you want when you have amnesia is to experience what you don't want. So that's what this world is. And all these players that have done these negative things to us are basically playing the role that they need to play in order for us to realize what we really want to create on this planet. So that stopped making me think that I'm a victim and started making me realize that the darkness is actually working for the light, and it's all a part of this experience. So when this occurred, I'd already been into sound and vibration because I was into like frequency and quantum physics and the mathematics behind non-locality and the double slit experiment. So that was frequency orientated. But then my first event, Portal to Ascension event, I went on tour with my friend Dr. Dream, who does what's called unconditional love activations around the US with 333 Tibetan bowls. He travels in a tour bus full time and facilitates these like megalithic sound and vibrational experiences. So I moved in with him, and we booked a tour going from San Diego to Vancouver And every other day, we did an event for a period of 6 weeks where we were facilitating events with gongs, Christ Consciousness Varjas from Shambhala Institute, with right frequency machines. It was like a pure 3 hour frequency bath, right? So I got trained in all types of sound tools from 2008 to 2009 just by touring with him. And as I was getting into all this stuff, the real reason why I really resonated with all of this sound information was because every topic that we speak about can come down to frequency. Everything is vibration and frequency. On the subatomic level, you and I are vibrating. You are sound. So I do presentations on origin stories of humanity. I do presentations on the galactic origins of humanity. I did one on a 3 hour presentation on Pythagoras the other day. And every single one of them, sound and vibration can be included in it because everything, even my computer, is sound and frequency. So I found that sound and just vibration in general was a really good underlying consistent thing within almost everything that I could really like speak about. So when it comes to extraterrestrials, for example, the reason why we don't see extraterrestrials is because it's a frequency game, right? We're not at the harmonic frequency in order to perceive all the realities around us. When it comes to dimensions and our experience on Earth, is because they're at different bandwidths of frequency. We're not able to perceive certain bandwidths unless we shift our consciousness to there, right? When it comes to eating well, it's about what you eat that affects your frequency. When you listen to music, it's frequency. So I started with doing these sound healing tools, but then I got immediately into the science behind sound and vibration. And then that just became something I just like to talk on. So now I have a course on sound frequency where I do 3 hours of explaining to people the ancient structures. Like I go through like the pyramids, stone circles in South Africa, a lot of different places, and speak about the advanced awareness that the ancients had of sound. And then the next one is a 3 hour presentation on how quantum physics and metaphysics are one and the same, basically. And then the last one is on what sound tools and what sound awareness will do for us in order to create a new world, because that's what it's all about. So when it comes to sound, just to like finish this answer real quick, is that when it comes to sound, it's not just about, what we're doing now and what we've done in the past and what they knew in the past. It's the fact that we're becoming intentional. We're realizing everything is sound and vibration. And what can we do with this technology when we realize that all vibration around us affects us? Can we shift the frequency of our Wi-Fi routers in order to not create disharmony in our body? Can we shift the frequencies of our music so that it creates harmony and peace within our bodies? Are we able to use sound and frequency to heal people from disease? So that's why I really like this topic.
So I wonder how many of you, I mean, as I listen to Neil, when we're in body, and I resonate with one of the early things you said in your last answer, Neil, is having people look at what is shifting in the purpose of their life at this very moment. Because as everything expands and moves through the process of the needs of humanity, those of us that are souls with, we might say, higher soul evolution are here, and our purpose continues to expand. So I wonder about those of you that know your interplanetary souls, because as I listen to you, Neil, and you may or may not, this may or may not fit in your paradigm. I don't know for sure, but my sense is you are a soul that has spent a lot of time not on Earth, and that your understanding of sound and frequency is extremely, no pun intended, fine-tuned because of where you come from and because of your knowledge base. And that, like when, as you just said, when you think about eating and you think about, well, am I going to eat an apple or a banana or a beet or a carrot? It's like, what's the frequency that my body needs right now? And that you tap into that frequency. So I'm just wondering about anybody else that's interplanetary, how this is all feeling to you, because to me, what Neil is sharing, what you're sharing, Neil, is really you're tapping into your own soul wisdom that you've gained over a huge long time of where you come from. So I don't know, Neil, you're welcome to comment on that.
Yeah, yeah. That's why like in my sound course that I do, the training one for people to be sound practitioners, right? It's like full circle sound course. But when I start the beginning of it, we speak about the fact that this isn't like any other sound course because in here, basically the bottom line is everything is sound, everything is vibration, and for having that full circle awareness of not only the science behind how sound and frequency works, but the fact that everything vibrates, then we can really become intentional with us becoming sound practitioners, because the end result of the sound course that we do is people to be able to go out there and facilitate sound healing courses, but realizing that all things around us affect us, and I love from the Bible, the Old Testament, in the beginning was the word, right? In the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God, right? Like that statement right there to me is mind blowing every time I say it. Like break it down. In the beginning was the word. Okay, in the beginning, right? First of all, that's that's coming up with the whole concept of linear time, right? So that in itself you have to start questioning. In the beginning was the word, right? The word was God, so the word was actually God. But then the next line says the word was with God. Well, that's completely paradoxical to the line before it. How can the word be God and the word be with God? Well, that's because that statement right there is talking about that the universe operates on a paradox. That not only was the vibration there before everything, but the vibration was not only the God, because the creation, but the vibration also created the realms of the gods. And there's also, like, on my origin stories of ancient civilizations, there's a whole area of it on sound frequency. And in many ancient origin stories, including the Laguna Pueblo natives, it says the vibration, well, it says she, talking about the universe, sang the realms of the gods into existence. Okay. So if everything is God, who is she? And who is the one singing? So everything comes from that vibration. So again, that just goes to why I love just talking about sound and frequency, and us realizing that this is just all one frequency experiencing itself infinitely. And we're just here as part of that vibration and frequency. And that vibration is really what unites us all. We're here in this world of amnesia, right? So the fact is that when I say that, I mean, we don't have remembrance of our divine connection, full awareness of it all. We basically work towards that. We do spiritual practices to feel connected. We don't remember our past lives. We don't remember our simultaneous lives. And the reason why I can say that's proven is because the fact is that past lives slash simultaneous lives, and that's a whole other conversation why I even say that. Pretty much you can just look up the documentaries on Netflix and Amazon and see all these things that completely, like, without a reasonable doubt, will make you realize that past lives exist. So let's just say that that's a reality, that we have these past lives. And then another reality is the fact that if we've had all these past lives, I don't consciously remember them. So I feel that source wanted to experience itself infinitely. And this is also in many origin stories, that the infinite singularity wanted to experience itself infinitely in all experiences. If duality came from the singularity doesn't doesn't give more credibility and more reverence to one part of the duality. So say duality can be male or female, that's duality. Say duality is good and evil, that's a duality. But both good and evil came from that singularity, from the Big Bang, from the infinite singularity. So the singularity doesn't judge either side of it all, because the singularity, source, God, wanted to experience itself infinitely. And within infinitely, it didn't say, I only want to experience myself as love. So the darkness and the light are both working for the source, which is the experience. But what I feel happened on this earth experience, and why this is a gift, was after experiencing so many things within the cosmos and in the multiverse, it was almost like, what can we do next to experience ourselves infinitely? Well, why don't we forget our connection to the divine and give ourselves the illusion of free will, because we don't even remember our connection, and then see what happens. So within that world of us having that forgetfulness and that amnesia, the only way we can understand what we want when we don't have complete remembrance of the divinity is by experiencing these traumas that kind of give us the opportunity. So I feel when you have traumas induced on you, challenges on earth, you either become a victim to those traumas or the master of those traumas. So we see a lot of perpetuators of abuse being people that were abused. Then we see a lot of people, like, for example, if you go to a rehab clinic because you're an alcoholic, Would you rather go to someone that used to be that went to and got a psychology degree, or someone that was an alcoholic and transcended those issues himself and now is teaching you how to do it? And usually in rehab clinics, you get ex-druggies, ex-alcoholics as the counselors teaching you, right? That's kind of just a loose kind of example there. But we have the opportunity to become the masters of our traumas. And a lot of people and channelers have said that as we evolve and start being the beings that go out into the cosmos, that we're going to basically go out and teach other civilizations of how we figured out what the light is and how we became the masters of the traumas that we had on this planet, right? From things that happen with our parents, from challenges with living within society, from trying to figure out how to live a financial abundant life or whatever. So that's just one component. But now let me get a little more esoteric with it, okay? So when it comes to the darkness is working for the light, I love to speak about the Gnostic texts, which were pre-325 AD, right before the Council of Nicaea. They were kind of just a little bit after the Council of Nicaea. They were kind of the Gnostic texts were kind of just like dismissed, and then the Nag Hammadi texts that were found in Egypt were actually some of the Gnostic texts. But within this, it basically says there's an area in there where God spoke to Lucifer and said, "You have the keys to the kingdom, but when the new kingdom of heaven comes to earth, you need to give me back the keys." It was a contractual agreement with the darkness to do what the darkness needed to do until it was time for the new reality to manifest. Okay, so that's one component. Now, another one is that a lot of people have connected with these beings that are doing the bad things to us on the planet and realize that they're really advanced spiritual souls that have signed up to give us this experience, because we're not able to have full ascension unless we've had these dark experiences on earth. So when I say the darkness working for light, that's what I mean. But let's just scratch everything I just said and put it down to this one right here. Like, if the darkness is working for the light, the reason why we know what we want and we are striving for something that is better is because we've experienced the things that we really don't want on this planet right now. So I feel like, for me, for example, a lot of things have happened in my life that has led me to doing Portal to Ascension. A lot of traumas and challenges have happened, abuse as a child and all these things, and all these dark things that I experienced, I became the master of those experiences. And now I've created Portal to Ascension, which has become a platform that's helped, hundreds of thousands of people transcend traumas that I didn't even create, but just because I've created a platform for it so that they can find some light in their life and be a more harmonious state of being. Something that I've been thinking about, there's 12 dimensions of this physical universe, and then there's a 13th dimension, which is the void, right? This is open to speculation. This is my personal thoughts, based on scientific and spiritual stuff combined. So 12 dimensions within this physical Milky Way galaxy universe, and a 13th dimension, which is the void, which is the center, the supermassive black hole in the center. The void is the direct connection to the singularity, the oneness, the void, right? All other dimensions exist within that. So when you leave the void, you immediately enter the realm of duality, because the void is the singularity. All 12 dimensions and below are duality. But in higher dimensions, and higher is not a good term, that's just the way we use it because we live in an age where we've created hierarchy. So that's the way we explain things. You get a different form of duality. Duality in this reality has become so dense that we've basically brought it down to good and evil, light and dark, happy, sad. But when you go and transcend into other dimensions, you get out of that dualistic state, and duality still exists, but it's no longer that density. It's masculine and feminine. There's no good and evil there. There's a polarity that exists, and you still exist in the realm of duality, but it doesn't have to be like what we've created on this planet. So I personally feel that our mission on Earth is to cultivate the singularity within us, right? By basically being in the void state, of being in that place of stillness, and live in a world of polarity, which is still duality, but be at that singularity point. So that's kind of what the fifth dimension is supposed to be, which is a dimension where we're able to cultivate a sense of singularity while we still exist in this free will reality of duality. I've had a lot of conversations with people that think that we're moving away from duality entirely. But I think that because we've had a dualistic experience that has been based on good and evil so much, we've kind of put all of our marbles into that bag of thinking duality only represents the extremes of good and evil. rather than the fact that duality and polarity are also one and the same. And you're not truly a singularity. If there's masculine and feminine energies, you're still existing within the duality. Because if you're singularity, you're just oneness. There is no division, you know?
Neil, say more, because as I'm listening to you, I mean, we're obviously having, which is totally fine, we're having a very esoteric conversation. Because my perspective is that the vast majority of people that I work with, whether I'm guiding regression, and the overall focus of the regression is to help people to understand past lives, soul purpose, why are they here, where do they come from, for what reason are they dealing with what they're dealing with.
Mhm.
That we are not young souls, and we are souls that have been tasked in different ways with bringing a higher vantage point. The conversation we're having here isn't one that probably, the vast majority of humans would be having.
Mhm.
That they wouldn't be interested in it. They might not even, this is no negative comment toward anyone, but it's a very high level esoteric conversation. So in your opinion, how do we bring this down to a level, but to bring this down to a level that benefits the broader human culture? Do you have any thoughts
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, most definitely. So basically what's happening now on the planet is that, well, I got to start it out with a little esoteric backstory.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, like, I don't know if you know about the yuga cycles, but every single ancient
Mhm.
civilization has
Yep.
prophesized that we're basically going through this ascension process. And the yuga cycles, 24 26,000 years. All ancient cultures pre-Noah's flood pretty much spoke
Right.
about these cycles. So when there's upturn in consciousness, what happens at these times is that old systems that no longer benefit us start collapsing. And at times it could look really chaotic because things that we've relied on, financial institutions, educational systems, they stop working. And this part right here might be a little controversial for some, but in a lot of times in the end of the Kali Yuga, democracy stops working as well. And
Right.
the reason why is that people become so ideologically divided because of the duality, the vast separation, that even though technology progresses at a faster speed, each political party becomes so ideologically different that they just keep canceling each other out and progression stops. So that happens at the end of the Kali Yuga. And due to this, a lot of institutions start collapsing. We're seeing that happen around the planet. Basically, things that don't work and serve for the highest good come down. The medical industry, healthcare in general, all these things start getting illuminated because they're not working for us. The educational system, right? The fact is, when it comes to children, is that our school is really designed to get them ready to work a 9 to 5, work a reality that has been created in a way that really isn't for the betterment of their souls and for the planet. We have put our energy and power into creating this kind of facade, this illusionary world that we're feeding into while we're completely neglecting ourselves, our relationships, and the planet, right? So, and a great example is, what is the bottom line of any corporation? Economy 101, I learned this in high school. The bottom line are the shareholders, not the people, not the planet. What is the bottom line for GDP, gross domestic product? What if we had a GDH, gross domestic happiness? So if we could really refocus our energy and efforts in a way that we actually focus on our relationships, our connections, and the planet, then I feel that these new institutions are going to be much more beneficial for us all. We have lived in this scarcity mentality mindset for so long, where we're told that there's so much lack. But the truth is, the universe is an abundant place, and there's technology out there to cultivate abundance and grow so much food and completely stop homelessness and all of these things. We have the technology, we have the intellect, we have the books in order to really implement this. But many people that have had power have this whole lack mentality that they've imposed on us because of, I don't know what it really is. People say it's a really nefarious agenda. Some people say it's just basic greed. So what is going to occur, what is occurring now, is a mass awakening on the planet. And through this awakening, when I see a lot of chaos in the world and things crumbling, I don't get fearful because I already know that it's inevitable, that this ascension is happening. It's time for this to occur. So when I see these things occurring, I feel in my heart and soul that we're taking another step closer towards a reality that will work for all of us. Because if we continue patching up the reality that we have, it will still be the same reality, just not working for the masses. We have the ability for everybody to live in peace and happiness on this planet. And I think that's what the eventual goal is. So just to be a little more concise with everything that I'm saying here is that when it comes to these institutions and making more practical, I think we need to readdress what our bottom line is and what we really care about. Right now, like I've done been a part of some support groups that are support groups for conscious creators, basically spiritual, like support groups for the people that are doing paradigm shift work, right? Just so that they have some support. And in one of the groups, it was like 60 of us. We all went around and the facilitator was like, what is it that you need right now for yourself? And every one of them said connection. 60 out of 60 people. I was like, my mind was blown. And I was like, wait a second, what a trip. Isn't this interesting that the people that are the most connected on earth or working full time on connecting others are missing connection in their own lives, right? That, or not missing it, but wanting more of it. Okay.
Right.
So I feel what's happened is we've become so disconnected, and I can go down many different avenues with this, but I'm just going to say that is that we've become so disconnected. Everything is creating more of it. It's like that 30-second TikTok mentality reality that we live in. You know, we see those like 30-second videos and we're just scrolling through the next one. We're disassociated, right? And what needs to happen is we need to really start focusing on our relationships and reconnecting with each other and the planet.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, beautifully said. And I think that is the reason that you do the work you do, the reason I do what I do, and many others of us who have agreed to be on the planet, is that pushing for change, pushing for altered behavior.
Mm-hmm. And when I say quantum physics, I don't mean the mainstream. I just mean the fact that we're subatomic particles vibrating. So that right there is what the bridge is between religion and spirituality and science, is understanding that we're all vibratory beings. And that's what I love speaking about that and explaining, because when some people say to me like that it's all woo woo or they don't get it, they don't like this new age stuff, then I start breaking it down on the subatomic level. Someone left a comment on my YouTube channel the other day on somebody's video on my YouTube, where somebody was like, this video is raising my vibes. And then the comment was, what the heck does that even mean anyway? Somebody said that. So I broke it down into a science of what that meant. And that was my response to him. So I love like explaining it, because when I started doing events in 2008, I was saying, you know, I'm here for doing this events for everybody, but I'm not here just to preach to the choir. I'm here to teach the linear minded people in the way that they can understand that we're all interconnected, right? And the best way to do that is from sound, vibration, frequency, especially the extraterrestrial thing. Why don't we see them if they're here? Why don't they land the White House lawn? I heard that so many times. But when you start breaking it down with, well, we're vibratory beings and these beings vibrate out of our reality that we can't even perceive, because we can prove the frequency range that our eyes can perceive and our ears can perceive, all of a sudden it starts making a little more sense to them, you know? So that's what I do on my platform is a lot of awareness on spreading this out, teaching people. And I'm just hoping that we can get featured on bigger platforms and just get this out to more and more people. And that kind of goes down a route of why they don't want this information out there. And I feel ultimately one of the main reasons is that a lot of this frequency information can ultimately lead to the cures to many illnesses. And I think that there's kind of like a pushback in regards to holistic cures as opposed to pharmaceutical industry. So that's what it comes down to, you know, just some of the information that I'm sharing. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get out to more people too, just connecting with as many people as possible in order to just spread this awareness. And we're doing it just like one person at a time, you know. And I've teamed up with different companies and everything too. So at this moment, we're actually getting exponential because I feel that it's showtime. There is no holding back with this information awareness. And I feel people are ready for it more than ever.
Yes, I think that's the point. for many of us who, whether it's Neil or me or the rest of you, doing what you're doing on the planet, is the time has come as we see more, we might just call them dualistic crises on the planet, to step up and bring this kind of information out to people. So Neil, we're going to let you go here in just a minute. Do you want to share anything about upcoming programs, anything like that, before we let you go?
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, if you're open to it, I would love to do a poem.
Sure, go
Yeah, you
ahead.
down for some poetry? Well, first I'll share. Okay, so I'm doing my origin stories of humanity presentation. That's going to be basically, I went through 300 different origin stories of ancient civilizations, and I categorized them into extraterrestrial, sound frequency, commonalities, all this stuff. So you can check all that out at portal2ascension.org. And okay, so I'll share a poem with you guys. Let's see what I'm going to do here.
It fits beautifully with this conversation of each of us expanding our commitment to aid humanity as, as an individual. So,
Okay, perfect. And thank you so much to everybody. And yeah, if you want to be in you can also contact me on my contact page on Portal Ascension. There's actually a box, message box as soon as you get to my website. Directly text me as well. So if you want to communicate, please do. All right, I'm going to share one that I call Atlantis.
great.
So are we one yet? Going back to source. No remorse when reinforce the course that we all endorse. Unconditional love is the highest vibration, a gift from above. Desolation of separations, we must be the ones to say this is enough. You see the third dimension? It was meant to be tough. There is no captivity, so unlock the cuffs, move away from hate and lust. A thought begins to shift the earth's crust into a straight axis. Just like in Atlantis, stop causing damage and learn to manage self-realization. When people start to vanish, when we change our intentions and join the like-minded souls in the fifth dimension, this is the beginning of our oversoul mission. What is it that you envision for the future incarnations? The Christ consciousness has arisen, tear the perception of being in this prison, this industrial system, slumber of opposites, duality, where we get lost and forget how to achieve liberation. The curiosity won't last for long at all. As we move to the aquatic age, break free from the third dimensional cage of limitations, Freemasons being misplaced in this illusionary reality. Governing authorities, there will be no more war. Co-create a love ambassador, open the doors. Life isn't supposed to be a chore. No getting on your knees, worshiping entities from the floor. The message is simple. We don't need to know anymore. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. And it's time for humanity to wake up. Thank you so much.
Neil, thank you so much. This has been just wonderful, deep, powerful, fits beautifully with the purpose of this course. So may you continue on your journey, bringing to the planet what you're bringing, your wisdom. And I look forward to being in touch with you. But thank you so very much for giving us your time today, tonight, wherever people might be. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Linda. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We'll be talking soon.
All right. Take good care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.